It was supposed to be the biggest day of his life. Michael had woken up before dawn, pressed his only good shirt, and rehearsed his answers 100 times. The job interview at Kingston Enterprises could change everything. No more struggling to make rent. No more sleepless nights worrying about his sick mother. But fate had other plans. As he rushed down the sidewalk, heart pounding, he spotted a car skidding out of control at the intersection. The tires screeched, the driver swerved, and in the blink of an eye, a woman was in its path. Michael didn't think. He acted. He lunged forward, grabbing the woman and pulling her to safety, just as the car missed them by inches. They crashed onto the pavement, his heart hammering against his ribs. The woman was shaking, her hands clutching his arm. "Are you okay?" he asked breathlessly. She looked up at him, eyes wide, as if trying to process what had just happened. But Michael didn't have time to wait. His phone buzzed. A reminder. He was going to be late. He scrambled to his feet, helped the woman up, and without another word ran toward his future. Except it was too late. When he reached the towering glass building of Kingston Enterprises, the receptionist gave him a tight-lipped smile. "I'm sorry, sir. The interviews are over." Just like that, his one shot at a better life was gone, and he had no idea. The woman he had saved was watching him walk away. Welcome to Stories of Brilliance, where we bring you real, emotional, and unforgettable stories that stay with you long after they end. Today's story is one of sacrifice, fate, and the unexpected twists life throws our way. A struggling young man gives up his dream opportunity to save a stranger, only to later realize she's the last person he ever expected. What she does next will change his life forever. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. And now, let's continue. Michael stood outside the towering glass building of Kingston Enterprises, staring at the locked door as if sheer determination could undo time. His chest tightened. The receptionist's words rang in his ears. The interviews are over. He had worked so hard, prepared so much, and now, because of one split-second decision, everything was gone. His feet felt glued to the pavement, his mind racing through the cruel irony of it all. Should he try to explain? Would they even listen? He had no proof, just the lingering ache in his muscles from pulling that woman out of harm's way. He thought of his mother, lying in bed at home, waiting for the good news. He thought of the landlord's warning about the overdue rent. Michael swallowed hard and turned away. The walk home felt longer than usual. Every step felt heavy, dragging him down into a pit of despair. He passed a coffee shop and saw people in business suits laughing over morning coffee. He saw a man stepping out of a sleek black car, checking his watch as if time worked in his favor. People like them never missed interviews. People like them never had to choose between doing the right thing and saving themselves. By the time he reached his apartment, he had convinced himself that he had made a terrible mistake. "Michael?" His mother's voice was weak, but the warmth in it never wavered. She was sitting up in bed, the worn quilt draped over her frail shoulders. He forced a smile. "Hey, Ma." How did it go? His throat tightened. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper, at the faded photographs on the dresser. The truth burned in his chest, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. It just wasn't meant to be. Her hand found his, cool and trembling. "You did your best, didn't you?" He nodded. That much at least was true. For the rest of the evening, he tried to shake the disappointment. He went through the motions, made his mother tea, helped her take her medication, promised he would find another job soon. But as he lay awake that night, Staring at the cracks in the ceiling, he couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if he had just kept walking. Would his life be different? Would he be celebrating a new beginning instead of mourning another lost chance? Meanwhile, in a luxurious penthouse on the other side of the city, Evelyn Kingston sat in stunned silence. The events of the morning played in her mind like a film on repeat. The sound of the car skidding, the flash of panic, the feeling of strong arms pulling her to safety. She had been seconds away from death, and that man, the one who had saved her, had left before she could even thank him. She had watched him run, seen the determination in his eyes. It didn't take long for her to figure out why. After all, she was Evelyn Kingston, CEO of one of the most powerful corporations in the country. She knew everything that happened in her company. The list of interviewees had been in her briefcase. His name had been right there, Michael Carter. She had watched him walk away from the opportunity of a lifetime for her. Something inside her stirred. This wasn't just a random act of kindness. This was something bigger, and Evelyn Kingston wasn't the kind of woman to ignore fate. Michael woke up to the harsh reality of his life staring him in the face. The sun filtered through the cracked blinds of their small apartment, but it brought no warmth, no hope. His stomach ached, not from hunger, but from the gnawing disappointment that had settled deep inside him. He had spent years fighting to climb out of the pit life had thrown him into. He had done everything right, studied hard, worked part-time jobs, stayed out of trouble. He had hoped this job at Kingston Enterprises would finally be his way out. But life didn't work that way. Life didn't reward people like him. With a sigh, he got up, washed his face in the tiny bathroom sink, and prepared his mother's breakfast. She smiled at him, weak but grateful, and for a moment he felt like everything would be okay. But as soon as she dozed off again, reality came crashing back. Michael needed a job, fast. He spent the morning walking from store to store, office to office, handing out his resume, only to be met with the same polite rejection over and over. "We're not hiring right now. We'll keep your application on file. You don't have the experience we're looking for." By noon, his feet ached, his stomach was empty, and his hope was nearly gone. Then, just as he was about to head home, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He frowned but answered. "Hello, Mr. Carter." A smooth female voice rang through the line. "This is Evelyn Kingston." Michael nearly tripped over his own feet. "The CEO of Kingston Enterprises," he blurted. There was a slight chuckle. "Yes, I was hoping we could meet." Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. "Meet? Why? Let's just say I owe you a conversation." An hour later, Michael sat stiffly in a high-end cafe, feeling like an imposter. The polished wooden tables, the waiters in crisp uniforms, the faint sound of classical music playing in the background. It was a world so far removed from his own. Then she walked in. Evelyn Kingston was nothing like he had imagined. He had expected someone cold, distant, an untouchable billionaire. But as she approached, there was warmth in her eyes. She was poised yet approachable, powerful yet strangely human. "Michael Carter," she said, taking a seat across from him. "You look surprised." "That's because I am," he admitted. "I still don't understand why I'm here." She folded her hands on the table. "Because I don't forget the people who saved my life." Michael blinked. "You remember?" "Of course." Her gaze was steady. "I know you missed your interview because of me, His heart sank. "It doesn't matter." "It does," she countered, "and I don't believe in accidents. You weren't meant to walk into my company as an interviewee that day. You were meant to meet me like this." Michael didn't know what to say. Then she leaned forward slightly. "Tell me something, Michael. If you had made it to that interview, do you think you would have gotten the job?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I worked hard for it. I had the skills. I was ready." Evelyn smiled, as if that was exactly the answer she wanted to hear. "Good," she said, reaching into her bag. Michael watched as she pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. He hesitated before picking it up. When he opened it, his breath caught in his throat. Inside was a contract, a job offer, an executive position, more than he had ever dared to dream of. His hands shook as he looked up at her. I don't understand." "You were prepared to work your way up from the bottom," Evelyn said. "But I don't think you belong at the bottom. I think you belong where real change happens." Michael swallowed hard. "Why me?" "Because I saw who you are when you didn't know anyone was watching," she said simply. "That's the kind of person I want on my team." Michael stared at the papers in front of him. The salary was life-changing. The position was something he would have worked years to reach. But it didn't feel real. "Take your time," Evelyn said, standing up. "But I hope you'll consider it." And with that she walked away, leaving Michael sitting there, staring at the contract that could change everything. Michael sat in the cafe long after Evelyn had left, staring at the job contract like it might disappear if he blinked too hard. His fingers traced the fine paper, his name printed neatly at the top. The position, executive associate, staring back at him like a dream he never dared to have. It was too much. It didn't make sense. People like him didn't get second chances. They didn't go from being rejected at the front desk to being handed executive positions over coffee. His first instinct was to be suspicious. Maybe this was charity. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe this was just a rich person's way of easing their conscience. But as he replayed the conversation in his head, he realized Evelyn Kingston didn't strike him as the kind of woman who gave handouts. She had seen something in him, something worth investing in. Still, the doubt gnawed at him. Would the other employees see him as a joke, a pity hire? Would he even be able to handle the job? The questions kept circling his mind as he made his way home. His mother was awake when he stepped inside, her frail body propped up by pillows, a book resting in her lap. She looked at him the way only a mother could, seeing right through him. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said softly. Michael let out a breath and sat beside her on the bed. "I think I just got the biggest opportunity of my life." Her brows lifted. "That company, the one you wanted?" "Yeah," he said, rubbing his hands together. "Only not in the way I expected." She listened as he explained everything. How he had missed the interview, how he had saved Evelyn Kingston's life, how she had tracked him down and handed him a job that most people spent years chasing. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Do you want it?" she asked finally. Michael opened his mouth, then hesitated. "I don't know." She reached over and took his hand. "Michael, I've watched you struggle your whole life. I've seen you work yourself to exhaustion just to keep a roof over our heads. If someone is finally seeing what I've always known, that you're capable of more, why would you question it?" He swallowed hard. "Because it feels like I didn't earn it." His mother smiled, squeezing his hand. "Maybe you already did, just not in the way you expected." Michael stared at the contract again. Maybe she was right. Maybe his entire life had been one long interview, one that had nothing to do with resumes or corporate jargon. Michael had barely slept the night before. The nerves had twisted his stomach into knots, but when the morning came, he put on the best clothes he had, a simple dress shirt and slacks, and made his way to the glass tower that had once turned him away. Only this time, when he walked in, the receptionist didn't dismiss him. She stood up. "Mr. Carter, right this way." He followed her through the sleek halls, passing rows of sharply dressed employees who barely glanced at him. He felt out of place, like a kid sneaking into a world where he didn't belong. Then he stepped into Evelyn Kingston's office. She stood by the window, overlooking the city. When she turned, she gave him a small nod of approval. "Glad you decided to take the offer," she said. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "I still don't know why you picked me." Evelyn studied him for a moment before responding. "Because I don't just hire resumes, Michael. I hire people. And the way you handled yourself that day, I knew you were the kind of man who wouldn't just work for this company, you'd fight for it." Michael didn't know what to say. Evelyn walked over to her desk and picked up a folder. "Your first assignment, read through this. We'll talk more after you've had time to settle in." He took the folder, feeling the weight of the opportunity in his hands. As he stepped out of her office, a few passing employees gave him curious glances. He could already hear the whispers forming. "Who's that guy? Did you hear he got hired straight into an executive role? Must have connections." Michael clenched his jaw. He would prove them all wrong. This wasn't luck. This wasn't charity. This was his second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Michael sat at his new desk, staring at the sleek office space that now belonged to him. Just days ago, he had been knocking on doors, hoping someone would give him a chance. Now, he was sitting inside Kingston Enterprises as an executive associate with a nameplate on his desk and a view of the city skyline. It didn't feel real, but the whispers and stares from the other employees reminded him that this was very real, and not everyone was happy about it. He wasn't surprised. If he were in their shoes, he might have questioned his sudden rise too, but they didn't know what he had been through. They didn't know how much he had fought just to get to this point, and he was determined to prove that he belonged here. Thrown into the fire by midday, Michael realized that Evelyn Kingston had no intention of easing him into the job. The folder she had handed him wasn't just some light reading, it was a full-scale corporate problem. One of the company's suppliers had been cutting corners, delivering subpar materials for months. The company's reputation was on the line, and someone needed to step up and fix it. Michael had expected to start slow, maybe shadow someone, sit in on a few meetings. Instead, he was being asked to handle a situation that could cost the company millions. His first instinct was panic. What if I mess this up? What if they realize I don't belong here? But then he thought about everything he had been through, the sleepless nights working dead-end jobs, the sacrifices, the struggle. He had gotten through worse. So instead of backing down, he got to work. He read through every contract, analyzed every invoice. He reached out to the supplier, asking for explanations. When they tried to brush him off, he pushed back, demanding accountability. By the end of the day, he had found the loophole that had allowed them to get away with it, and he drafted a plan to cut them off without damaging the company's operations. When he placed the report on Evelyn's desk, she barely glanced at it before setting it aside. "You handled it?" she asked. Michael hesitated. "I think so, but..." "No," she interrupted. "You either did or you didn't." He met her gaze. "I did." A slow smile spread across her face. "Good, I knew you would." Michael's success didn't go unnoticed. Some employees started warming up to him, impressed by the way he had tackled the supplier issue. but others still whispered behind his back, "He got lucky. He's just a charity case. Kingston is testing something with him. He won't last." Michael heard it all, and every word fueled him. He worked harder than ever, staying late, learning everything he could. He wasn't just here to survive, he was here to thrive. But even as things seemed to be going well at work, his personal life was starting to crack. His mother's condition worsens. Michael came home one evening, exhausted but hopeful. He had made progress, proved himself. Maybe, just maybe, life was finally turning in his favor. But as soon as he walked into the apartment, he knew something was wrong. His mother was sitting up in bed, but her breathing was labored, her skin pale. "Ma!" He rushed to her side. "What's wrong?" She tried to wave him off, but her hand trembled. "Just tired, sweetheart." Michael's heart pounded. He knew her condition was fragile, but she had always been strong, always pushed through. But now, she looked weaker than he had ever seen her. He sat beside her, gripping her hand. "Let me take you to the hospital." She shook her head. "We can't afford that." Michael's throat tightened. Even with his new job, he hadn't gotten paid yet. Their savings were non-existent. The weight of helplessness pressed down on him. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn Kingston. "I need you in the office early tomorrow. Big meeting." Michael looked at his mother, then at the message. He had fought so hard to get this job. If he started missing work now, people would question him. But his mother needed him. He was being forced to choose again. And this time, he didn't know what the right choice was. Michael sat on the edge of his mother's bed, his phone still in his hand, Evelyn Kingston's message glowing on the screen. Big meeting. 2 simple words, but they carried a weight that pressed down on him like a stone. His mother was getting worse. He could see it in the way her hands trembled, in the labored rise and fall of her chest. He had worked so hard to get here, to build something better for both of them, but now it felt like life was playing another cruel trick on him. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, trying to think. If he skipped the meeting, it could damage everything he had built at Kingston Enterprises. He had worked his way into the company's trust, earned the respect of people who had doubted him from the start. But if he went to work and something happened to his mother while he was gone, he would never forgive himself. His mother, as if sensing his turmoil, placed her frail hand over his. "Michael, don't you dare miss that meeting." His head snapped up. "Ma, your health is more important than any job." She gave him a weak smile. "That's where you're wrong, baby. That job is going to change your life. And when I'm gone, I need to know you're going to be okay." Michael felt something crack deep inside him. "Don't say that. You're not going anywhere." She let out a slow breath, her eyes filled with a sadness he wasn't ready to face. "We both know that's not true, sweetheart." Michael clenched his jaw, fighting back the burning in his eyes. "I can take care of you. I'll get the money. Michael," her voice, though weak, held firm. "Promise me you won't throw this away. Promise me you'll go to that meeting." He looked at her, his entire body tense with conflict. Finally he nodded. "I promise." The next morning, Michael walked into Kingston Enterprises with his mind still at home. He had hired a nurse to sit with his mother for the day, but the guilt was like a heavy chain around his neck. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a mistake, but as soon as he entered the boardroom, the weight of his decision hit him. Every major executive at Kingston Enterprises was there, seated around a massive glass table. Evelyn Kingston stood at the head, her sharp eyes scanning the room. The moment she saw Michael, She gave him a small nod. Let's begin. Michael barely had time to process what was happening before Evelyn launched into the presentation. The company was on the verge of a massive expansion, moving into international markets, securing multi-million-dollar deals. But there was one major problem. Their competitor, a ruthless conglomerate known as Whitmore Industries, was moving aggressively to undercut them. If they didn't act fast, Kingston Enterprises could lose everything they had been working toward. Evelyn turned to Michael. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice steady, "you've been reviewing our supplier contracts. What's your take on this situation?" Michael's pulse jumped. Every head in the room turned to him. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. He was the outsider. The guy who had missed his interview, the one who had been handed a job he didn't deserve. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The moment he failed. But Michael refused to let that happen. Taking a deep breath, he stood. "Whitmore Industries is playing dirty," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "They've been offering suppliers long-term contracts at slightly lower rates to lock them in, but they're cutting corners. They'll under-deliver, and those suppliers will regret signing with them." Some of the executives exchanged skeptical glances. "And how do you suggest we stop them?" one of them asked. Michael didn't hesitate. "We flip the script. Instead of offering lower prices, we offer security. Lock in our key suppliers with guarantees, assure them that Kingston Enterprises will never compromise on quality, and that their long-term growth is safer with us than with Whitmore." There was a silence. Then Evelyn smiled. "That," she said, "is exactly what I was hoping you'd say." The meeting ended with a plan in motion. Michael's plan. He had just solidified his place in the company. He should have felt victorious. But as soon as he stepped out of the boardroom, his phone rang. His stomach twisted when he saw the number. The nurse. Michael's hands were shaking as he answered. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was gentle but firm. "Michael, you need to come home, now." The world blurred. He didn't remember running to the elevator. He didn't remember pushing through the busy streets, shoving past people as he sprinted to his apartment. All he knew was that when he reached the door, his heart was pounding so hard it hurt. He burst inside, and then everything stopped. His mother was lying still, her frail hands folded on her chest. The nurse sat beside her, eyes filled with sorrow. Michael's knees hit the floor. "Number, no, no, no." His mother's face was peaceful, as if she had simply fallen asleep. But she wasn't sleeping. She was gone. Michael's entire world shattered. The funeral was small, simple, just as she would have wanted. Michael stood by her grave, the weight of his loss pressing down on him so hard he could barely breathe. She had been his anchor, his reason for fighting, and now she was gone. Evelyn Kingston stood at a distance, watching him. She didn't say anything, just gave him space. But as the days passed, she did something no one else had ever done for him. She believed in him, not as a charity case, not as someone to pity, but as a man who had earned his place in this world. Months passed. Michael threw himself into his work, not as a way to escape his grief, but as a way to honor his mother's memory. He climbed the ranks at Kingston Enterprises, not because of Evelyn's kindness, but because he earned it. He never forgot where he came from. He made sure Kingston Enterprises worked with smaller businesses, giving opportunities to those who needed them, people like him. One day, as he sat in his office, looking out at the city below, he whispered, "I made it, Ma." And for the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. This was a story of resilience, of sacrifice, of how one act of kindness can change a life forever. Michael Carter was a man who started with nothing, who lost everything, and yet he never gave up. Because sometimes life isn't about waiting for the right opportunity. It's about becoming the right opportunity. This is Stories of Brilliance. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share. You never know whose life you might change just by spreading a little kindness.